Series win over the Cubs, a couple promising performances, and a series that always has people's attention on deck. This weekend, it's the On Fire podcast. We'll discuss all those things in great depth. He's Derek Togerson. I'm Darnay Tripp. How does this Thursday afternoon find you, Derek?
It finds us riding a first series win of the year and having surprising questions about our shortstop, which I did not think I would ever say this year.
Yeah, well, maybe you thought you were going to say it before the switch at shortstop. Then after the switch at shortstop, you felt like you'd be pretty good about the guy who's at shortstop. But
yeah, it's like what's going on here? We're seeing things we shouldn't be seeing, but we're gonna stay mostly positive in this one because I'm liking what I'm seeing from this ball club so far this year.
Yeah, there is a lot to like. Maybe some shades of 2023 in their performances so far, but it's hard to know what to believe at this point. So hopefully they will show us some more promising signs in the week ahead. Thanks to OG's, a sponsor of the On Friar podcast. OG's is constantly updating their menu. Great food and drink items, great beer list, and a great place to watch whatever your game of choice is. Obviously, you can catch Padres games there. It is Masters Week, Derek. Do you watch much of, do you try and catch some of the action at Augusta? I try and,
Oh, I love it. I'll watch any golf tournament. Really, but I absolutely love watching any major championship just because it is so nice to see just for a very short amount of time, the best players in the world struggle like I do.
That's true. It's true. It's very relatable. And also the best players in the world all together, because we don't see enough of that these days. And to see them all at the same venue, and when that venue is Augusta National, it's a beautiful thing. And hopefully, guys like Xander, Phil will give us something to get excited about this weekend.
Xander, yes. Phil, no. He can not miss. He cannot make the cut, and I'd be very happy.
So you can go to OG's and root against Phil Mickelson to your heart's content. A great place to watch whatever your game of choice is. NBA playoffs coming up as well. So there's a lot to keep track of. OG's is a great place to do that. So thanks to OG's and all they do for the On Fire podcasts and NBC7 and the Sports Wrap team. Without further ado, the welcome music. Thanks, as always, for hanging out with us. It is the On Friar podcast, brought to you by NBC7, Derek Togerson, Darnay Tripp. Thanks for listening, as always. Thanks for watching. You can, of course, catch us on the NBC7 streaming channel on your Roku device, and you can watch us live Thursdays on the NBC San Diego YouTube channel. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, get in the chat. Let us know what you think about what we've seen from the Padres so far. Questions, hot takes, concerns, observations. What do you think about the new food at Petco Park? We're open to anything. So anything you want to pass our way, we are happy to discuss on the On Fire podcast. And Derek, because last week we hung out with our buddy John Conniff, which we always enjoy. And so if you haven't gotten a chance to check out that episode, talked about the minor league guys, what we've seen from Jackson Merrill, Graham Pauley, who's now in AAA, etc., but didn't get a chance to do like a real deep dive on what we saw like the first week of the season. Now we're a couple weeks in on top of the Korea series. Canvas is blank for you. What comes to mind, having surveyed a couple weeks worth of baseball from the 2024 San Diego Padres?
It's more promising than last year. The offense, while it's still spotty, and for some inexplicable reason, this team, since I've been here the last 19 years, they have this incredible ability to make rookies and journeymen look like Sandy freaking Koufax. I don't know why. I don't know how. So throw that aside. That's just an organizational thing. It's been a lot more encouraging. And the offense has shown the ability to put up crooked numbers. They're scoring more. They're having bigger innings. They are putting more stress on pitchers. They're getting into bullpens earlier. It looks like a completely different approach this year. I'm very, very excited about that. One trip through the starting rotation looked awesome. Dylan Cease looks like he's every bit as good as you were hoping he was going to be. Ditto Michael King. Maybe Joe and you might have one of those kind of up and down seasons until they get their feet back under them. Remember, they missed a lot of time last year. They might still be kind of feeling things out, feeling their way through. Once everyone gets back in rhythm, the only big question mark I have about this team right now is A, the bullpen and defining roles and whether or not they're going to be able to find guys who can really handle those types of situations. And B, can Jurickson and Profar stay this hot the entire season? Because what on earth has gotten into that guy? I love it.
I love it as well. He's so much fun to watch and just a breath of fresh air. And, people joke about the vibes and that sort of thing, but like there is something to be said for that. And the joy with which he plays the game and just the atmosphere around the club just seems a little bit enhanced with his presence and when he's around, which is great to see. Shout out to
he leads the league in vibes.
He leads the league in vibes, like W vibes or vibes plus. He's at like 350. Shout out to Big Island Bum watching from north of Seattle. Appreciate you being with us. Our buddy,
what's up, man? Thanks for listening and watching.
Our buddy Lauren, great to see you guys again. I'm so confused about this team. I feel like the team is better potentially offensively than last year, but still way too many 2023 vibes. And Dodgers, not hopeful. Feels like they should be better potentially offensively with the departure of Juan Soto. I don't know if I'm quite there yet. Now, I will say what we've seen from Luis Campusano, what we've seen from Jackson Merrill, Trent Grisham not being around, Jake Cronenworth looking like Jake Cronenworth plus. So yes, we've talked about the length of this lineup, that being very, very promising and very encouraging. But it's just, it's hard to say. Like, I'm excited about Jurickson and Profar. I'm excited about Jake Cronenworth and Campusano and Jackson Merrill. But on the flip side, and I'm going to pull those guys' numbers up, can you realistically expect them to continue to perform at quite the level that they've been at to this juncture? And so you say, okay, Manny, who appears to be heating up a little bit. Fernando Tatis Jr. certainly done some good things. Obviously, Monday night, like one of those Tatis Petco Park moments that people are going to remember for a long time, like added to his career highlight list. Xander Bogaerts, finally homers. He's not now got 2, or did he add another extra base hit? He's got a few extra base hits now, which is encouraging. So expect those guys to continue to kind of ramp up a little bit, but you don't know if you're going to get Campusano, Merrill, and Profar hitting 300 plus and Profar with like an 1100 OPS.
Well, let's go around the lineup and look at right now, how are they compared to last year? And what's our confidence level in that moving forward? All right, we'll start at catcher. Luis Campusano this year versus Austin Nola last year. Can't even compare the two between last year and this year. And you get a pretty good sense you're going to be better moving forward. So catcher, they're better. First base, Jake Cronenworth. Jake Cronenworth looks like the guy we saw when he was an all-star in 2021 and 22, but with even better power potential. And he just did the thing where I was listening to him talk about it in the clubhouse the other day. He raised his elbow. And what that's doing is helping him not loop under balls. His hands were drifting underneath and he was missing too many pitches. Now he's much quicker at the strike zone because he just did one little tweak in his approach. He's hitting the ball like Jake Cronenworth needs to hit the ball. They're better at first base. They will continue to be better at first base moving forward. Second base. It was more or less Ha-Seong Kim last year, and now we have Xander Bogaerts. Xander is not the same version that he was, but he's basically giving you what Ha-Seong Kim gave you as second base last year, and you have a pretty good sense Xander's going to figure it out. At shortstop, that's where you take a dip, because Xander was really good in the first month last year. Ha-Seong Kim has been not very good in the first month this year. He made 7 errors in 158 games last year. He's got 3 errors in 15 games this year. He had 2 errors in a game for the first time ever against the Giants, and it cost him a game. I think it's a blip in the radar. I think he's going to be better off moving forward the rest of the year. Third base, well, obviously it was Manny last year. You're not going to live up to that with no matter what you do, so they're down there. But when you get Manny back, if he is able to play in the field, and with that little 2025 comment, I'm not sure if he actually will or he's just the DH all year this year. So we'll call third base an up in the air. This is the wild one. Left field, Jurickson Profar. First 2 weeks of the year, exponentially better than what Juan Soto was in the first month of the year last year. Now, can we expect that going forward? Probably not. But as of right now, Pro has been much better. Plus, it's just a better clubhouse vibe. Center field, Jackson Merrill has dwarfed anything that Trent Grisham was going to give you. And he's only 20 years old. He's going to continue to give.
I will say Trent Grisham's good for like an incredible like 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but not in a row.
Every so
if you add up
hey,
14 good days of Trent Grisham, you'll get 2 weeks. Yes.
2022 postseason. Maybe that was like a week and a half. But every so often, you're like, Trent Grisham has arrived. And then he's back to staring at strike three right down the middle.
Yes. And defensively, I mean, is he as elite as Grisham is? No, but he has not been a problem at all. He's played the position really capably. Right field, didn't even have Tatis for the first couple of weeks last year. So yeah, right field, they are better. And given what he's been able to do and have a full off season under his belt, yes, he is going to continue to be better. So that is what 5 of the 8 positions in the field, they are better. They're going to be better at DH when Manny starts to figure it out, because last year was kind of a revolving door with Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter at DH. They weren't giving you anything either. So 9 spots in the lineup, 6 of them are better right now and probably going to be better moving forward. So yeah, the offense in a better position. It's really, really encouraging to look at. In the bench, I like what I've seen from Tyler Wade. I like what I've seen from Eggy Rosario. I like what I've seen from even Jose Azocar, who has looked not giving you power, but he's getting on base. I really, really like what I'm seeing, because it looks like it's going to continue to imbue confidence and move this moving forward. So this team's in a better spot than they were last year. Lord, I totally get the 2023 vibes, but I'm also getting a nice mix of 2022 feelings in this team as well right now. It's kind of a hybrid. So we can continue to weed out 2023 and go back to 2022. We'll be in much better shape.
I don't want to kill your optimism, but since opening day, Tyler Wade has 2 hits. 111 with a 325 OPS so far in the month of April.
But he's been giving you good at bats.
love the Eggy Rosario home run.
Yep.
And
he's got a couple.
Yeah, mix him in a little bit more based on matchups. I love that. So I mean, the DH thing is something that they're going to need to address at some point. Now, you mentioned Manny, and there is still kind of the murkiness of his status going forward. He's been throwing from third to first pregame this past week. So that's a good sign. But hopefully at some point in the next few weeks, month, what have you, he's going to be back at third base. Well, then who's your DH? Because one way or another, you got Tyler, obviously third base is in a better spot when Manny Machado is there defensively, but you're also trading kind of, one thing for another a little bit. Either way, you got like the Tyler Wades and Eggy Rosarios of the world getting at bats at third base or getting at bats at DH. And I just don't know how good I feel. Like, how much of an upgrade is that over Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz from a year ago? And probably a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know if that really inspires a whole lot of confidence for this lineup.
No, you're going to have to figure out a way to get a bat in there. And Campusano was probably the first thought, because Higashioka is so good defensively. And he's actually swung the bat decent, and not been a completely. He's not Austin Hedges at the plate,
homer,
but he's going to give you some professional at bats. Brett Sullivan, I think, is the guy who. He was hitting damn near 500 at AAA when he got called up. We'll see if he can give you something from the left side. Maybe he becomes a guy who either DHs or gets, gives Campy a chance to DH and goes behind the plate. And again, none of these guys are Manny Machado. Very few people you're going to be able to find in this situation are going to be Manny Machado. So I don't know, man. Can you find another bat somewhere that's going to be consistently good? Probably. Is it going to have to be probably via trade somewhere, unless you want to go down and get somebody like a Jacob Marcy who's been off to a hot start with AA. I don't know.
Yeah. Nick sounds like he's tired of seeing Tyler Wade at third base every single day. And we were all clamoring for Graham Pauley, and probably the right move with Graham Pauley to say he just wasn't getting enough action. For whatever reason, I don't know why that was. He probably deserved to be in there, or should have been in there more frequently than he was. But maybe you should have started in AAA anyways in the first place, and that's where he is now, and he'll get a chance to develop and get more regular everyday action, which I think everybody feels positively about. But it still leaves you in this situation where whoever's playing third base, whoever's DHing, I just don't know how excited you feel about that on a day-to-day basis.
I do agree with Nick, by the way. Tyler Wade should not be your everyday third baseman. That is a platoon situation between him and Rosario right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, agreed. And given what we've seen from Eggy, I think, there's enough there in a small sample size to throw him out there more regularly, to see what he can give you. And yeah, I don't know. I want to be optimistic. It's just riding a roller coaster, man. This team, you wish that they could have turned Monday into something and kind of harnessed that energy and the positivity, enthusiasm. And baseball's tough. You do start from scratch every single day and you can't necessarily force it. But, it was just such a Padres thing to have one of the most epic comebacks in franchise history and come out and score one run on an Eggy Rosario home run the very next day. But
Yep.
to their credit, Wednesday was exactly what you expect them to be, where they're not, you have the Cronenworth, you have the Profar home runs, and you should have those types of games with Tatis, with Machado, that sort of thing. But I think what we all want to see more of is just, you know, turning over the lineup, moving guys station to station, string together at bats, string together, walk, single, double, that sort of thing. And they've shown that potential. Shildt talked about after the game, the fact that Kim has the error, Cease gives up the homer, they punch back right away.
Yep.
And so those are, again, promising signs, and scoring multiple innings, not having the Jurickson Profar grand slam on a Saturday night and you don't do anything else the rest of the game. I was curious, Derek, and I did some research, and I don't know if this is something that is anything or not, but I was curious, like, how many innings have the Padres scored runs in this year? And of course, I don't have my notepad with me off the
Oh,
top of
come
my
on.
head, but it was like 33 out of like 124 or something like that. It was basically about 2.4 innings a game. And I looked at the Cubs. They're playing the Cubs. Cubs are up there in terms of runs scored. They're at like 3.5 innings per game that they'd score a run. I don't know what these numbers mean, but what piqued my curiosity was the feast and famine kind of nature of this team. Now you had the second Korea game where I think they scored at like 6 out of 8 innings or something like that.
Right.
So they've seen it, but it just seems like, they'll start with a couple runs and then just go completely silent. Obviously Monday night they did most of their damage, 7 runs in 1 inning. But what I liked about Wednesday, this is a long way of me getting around to saying what I liked about Wednesday is they just kept chipping away. It wasn't every single inning, but like every other inning, they were getting something on the board. And that's tough for a team to kind of keep up with. And I feel like with the length of this lineup, the potential is there for them to do that. But it's just still like the hot and cold of this team that makes it a little bit frustrating and difficult to watch.
Yeah, and I will be a bit the eternal optimist on this too, is they've seen the Dodgers, the Giants, the Cubs, and then the Cardinals. St. Louis revamped completely their entire starting rotation. Those other 3 clubs, they've got some pretty good starting pitchers. I mean, the Giants have a really good rotation. The Dodgers obviously have, a really good top 2 or 3. And by the way, Walker Buehler is getting ready to come back, which is kind of terrifying. You've got they've seen some really good pitching staffs, like they haven't run into the injury riddled Miami yet. So sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other team. Now the Ben Brown thing, I don't freaking get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then you go out and beat up on an all-star like Kyle Hendricks. So it's one of those weird things, but I think it all has to go down to, is the approach consistent, and is that consistent approach yielding at least somewhat consistent results? And so far, that's what I've seen, is these guys they're attacking earlier in the count. They are working longer counts. I mean, Jake Cronenworth's at-bats were phenomenal in that comeback win. I mean, remember, he had an 8-pitch walk, a 9-pitch home run. I mean, 2 at-bats where he gets on base and sees 17 pitches.
And they're down 8-0 when he grinds out that 9-pitch at-bat that led to the home run.
I remember he had a walk earlier in the game where he saw 8 pitches. Like he's that takes a toll on a pitching staff over time. So just to see them continue to do that, he's not the only one who's doing it either. To see them continue to, go after the right pitches. The only problem that I see with this offense right now is they're not hitting mistakes consistently. Like they're going after him, which is something. And you mentioned Trent Grisham. He just would watch strike three float down down the middle and not even try to offer at it. They're swinging at mistakes. They're not hammering said mistakes as often as they need to. Remember what the Warriors did against the Lakers a couple of nights ago, where they saw nothing but open threes because Anthony Davis wasn't there and hit like 60% of them. If you get an open shot, you knock it down. In baseball, if you get a mistake, you need to hit it and hit it hard. That's the one thing I don't see with this offense right now is they're not making pitchers pay consistently enough for making mistakes. So if they can figure that part out of it, this is potentially a very dangerous offense.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something I've even, and I have a note on Kyle Hendricks, but it's something I've even noticed with Manny Machado as he's, trying to kind of find his groove a little bit, where, he's not necessarily swinging at bad pitches, but you see a bunch that we're just so accustomed to Manny just hammering, and he's just a shade late or what have you. And, you expect him to kind of, again, get in his groove there. But a guy that will pound mistakes just hasn't done that to this point in the season. I was just looking at his Savant page to see if anything's jumped out there in terms of plate discipline. They have so many amazing numbers and that sort of thing that can kind of paint a picture. But I was watching
that's
Manny.
the eye test, though. As you look for that, I mean, it's then the numbers might not match what the eye test is, but I have rarely seen Manny Machado miss. Like the ball he hit against the Dodgers in South Korea for his first hit of the year, that long 3-run homer, that was a mistake, and he pounded it.
Yeah.
That's been the exception for Manny so far this year. I've seen multiple times where he's gotten pitches in the strike zone that he's fouled back. And that's you just don't see him doing that very often. He's just not right. That elbow, that arm, whatever it is, it's still hurt. It's not strengthened enough. It's not all the way back. I don't know what the deal is, but he's just not right the way that he probably needs to be. And I heard somebody say the other day, like, okay, well, if Shohei Ohtani can have a Tommy John surgery and still go out and hit like Shohei Ohtani, why can't Manny have an elbow issue and go out and hit like Manny? And the difference is, well, Ohtani is a left-handed hitter, right? When you're a left-handed hitter, you're pulling through with your tricep, right? So you're able to pull the bat through this way. That doesn't affect the inside of the elbow. Manny's right-handed, it's the elbow. When you're coming through this way, that impacts the elbow, right? It's the inside part here where you have the tennis elbow, you have all the issues. So you're not able to be as strong as a right-handed hitter with your top hand as your right hand. So that's the difference. So the whole Ohtani Machado comparisons, if Manny was a left-handed hitter, it wouldn't be bugging him at all. He's coming through this way with the tennis elbow. It's not the same thing when you have a surgically repaired elbow.
Well, and I mean, they are different injuries too, right? I mean, it's not a UCL tear.
No, but it's the elbow thing. So when you're able to kind of take, if you're pulling this way, you're taking the elbow out of the swing more or less.
Yeah.
Right. It's more of an upper arm tricep thing. But when you're come on your top hand's a lot of elbow. If you have any kind of elbow issue, it's going to be a problem.
Well, no, and I wasn't second guessing what you were saying. I was just for the people to say, well, if Ohtani did this and Bryce Harper did this, why can't Manny? Well, I don't know. It's a different injury. It's not the exact same thing. And so they're going to respond differently.
People just hear elbow.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complex than that. I was curious about the Kyle Hendricks thing. Career 3.27 ERA in 15 starts against the Padres. And we're so used to him just shoving against the Padres. Last year, one start, quality start, gave up 3 earned in 6 innings. In 2022, 2 starts, 13 and 2/3 of 1 run ball. 2020, 1 start, quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs. 2019, 2 starts, 12 and 2/3, 3 earned runs, and then he had a stinker in 2018. So since 2019, which I think we kind of consider this era of Padres baseball, although so much changed in 2020, maybe 2020, but 2019 you got Tatis, you got Machado. They have had just a horrible time with Kyle Hendricks. And hey, that's a good sign. Like, it's the same guy, same type of pitcher. You're not like Kyle Hendricks, man. Velo's down. He's not throwing 96 anymore. Like, he's never been that type of guy. And they were able to kind of crack that code to the tune of 7 earned runs in 5 innings. And so,
yeah, and I know he came in with an 11 ERA, and that's not your normal Kyle Hendricks, so he's not really being him right now. But still, he's had a lot of success against this lineup. This should have been the lineup he gets right against.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, it's been cool hearing Shildt talk about, the approach. He spoke about it after the game Monday and then Tuesday, just like, hey, that's, basically that reaffirms our approach and who we want to be, where no matter what the situation is, we're going to compete and we're going to compete hard. And, these are things that you just expect to kind of be a given, but, human nature is what it is. Apparently that wasn't really the case last year. And, there were a lot of games where they went down. I think their biggest comeback last year was 5 runs. When they got down a few runs last year, you're like, all right, it's curtains.
It's over. Yeah,
it's over. And there wasn't necessarily that type of kind of grind it out, just kind of stay after it no matter what the circumstances tell you. And now that they have that in the back pocket, they're going to be in these situations again. And hopefully it's just kind of a good memory to fall back on, to know that they've been there before and they can do it. And so I do think kind of mentality wise, they are a different team. They're in a different place. But I'm not, completely comfortable with the idea that this is a different team from last year. And I think we were having these types of conversations last year. We're like, oh, so hot and cold, and this guy will come around, and this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And it just never really happened, or it happened in September when it was too late. And so there's part of me that worries, like, maybe we're just following an inconsistent ball club, and that's going to be kind of what it is. I hope that's not the case, but I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility.
No, and Mike, here's the thing. You got Mike Shildt preaching an approach, right? Bob Melvin was much more hands-off. He was like, listen, y'all are professionals. Y'all know what you're doing. Go and do your thing. Shildt and his staff, they are preaching approach. This is how we are going to be as an offense, up and down. And as guys continue to see it having success, I think that will then take root and they'll have even more success as the season goes on. Remember, he says, better as the game goes on, better as the season goes on, right? And I looked it up. Every single time the calendar turns to August with a Mike Shildt team with the Cardinals, they took off. I mean, they were incredible. They go on some kind of great stretch run. They had a 20-5 stretch in 2021 and in 2020 kind of throw out because it was the pandemic, even though they had to play, I believe it was 30 games over 23 days and somehow went 16 and 14. He just gets his guys going. In 2021, before they fired him inexplicably, he had a franchise record 17-game winning streak for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have had a lot of winning streaks over the years. One of the greatest organizations of all time. His teams get better as the season goes on. So as this continues to take root and guys continue to be comfortable in this system, I think you're going to see them be, a 500, 1 or 2 games over. And then, man, after the All-Star break, watch out for this team to all of a sudden take off, because historically that's what Mike Shildt teams do. So going to kind of spin our wheels here for a little while and then go and get a wild card spot and then make hay in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, look, a series win is a promising start. And, I think it's funny. Do you remember Jerry DiPoto, Mariners GM, talking after the season last year, and he had kind of their end of season scrum with he and Scott Service. And they talked about, well, we just want to be a club that wins 54% of our games, which is like, wow, that gets me fired up as a fan. Sweet.
Wow. What is wrong with that?
And his philosophy was basically like, teams that win 54% of the games at some point in a decade, like win a World Series or win a pennant or something like that. There was some kind of in the weeds, like, rationale for it. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, doesn't give you a whole lot of excitement as a fan. And we obviously know, it's a team that does not spend. They traded off some pieces. They did not go after Blake Snell. And maybe they had other reasons for not going after Blake Snell, but that just seemed like, hey, homecoming is a possibility. It would get fans fired up, yada, yada, yada. But I was thinking, like, with the Padres, like, actually just winning 54% of the games is not the worst thing, because then you give yourself that chance to, when you go on a run here or there, you're not just hovering about, 54%, that gets you to what, like 84 or 85 wins, what have you.
I just did the calculator. 87.5 wins a year.
Hey, 87.5 wins. You're in the playoffs last year. And then you mix in a 5-6 game winning streak here or there, and you're cooking. And I think that's kind of what I want to see after last year. Like, we would love end of 2021. What was it? End of June, when they went on a crazy run. I think May they had a run that year. Obviously, the second part of, September last year and in 2022, getting them into the postseason was great. But I kind of just wanted like a boring couple months where they win, they go like 16-13, 15-14, 17-12. Like, that's kind of fine after last year, because that just consistently winning series, having winning months is something that's eluded them. And the win streaks are great. Hopefully they happen at some point. You expect them to, but just kind of chipping away at series like this, I think, would be a sign of good things.
Well, what you just said is 10 games over 500 over a 3-month stretch. I think we take that.
I think we take that.
Yeah, I think we take, by the way, 90 wins. Maybe we shouldn't be making fun of Dipoto quite so much. 90 wins is 55.5%.
Well, there you go. Maybe he's onto something.
So he just presented that in a horrible freaking way.
Terrible way.
It's like, just say, we want to be able to win 88 games a year and move up from there. If you say that, fan base go, oh, that's a winning rate. Yeah. Oh, I'm totally down with that for sure. No question. I would sign up for that right now. Instead, he's like 54%. People say 54. What? Why are you shooting for mediocrity?
Yeah.
Because that's what that sounds like. Because it's slightly above win half your games. But, numbers wise, what he needs is media training. That's what he needs. Be able to figure out how to communicate effectively to fan bases to get them fired up to say, listen, we're shooting to win 88 games. That gets us in the playoffs. And then we're going to go out and win ourselves some playoff series. Woohoo! Where do I work? Season tickets. Where do I get them? Where do I get them? Yeah. If you say, oh, we just want to win 54% of our games, people say, screw you.
Yeah.
We're not here for mediocrity.
Yeah. When we're paying $16 for a beer, I just think kind of like boring consistency would be encouraging from the Padres, because they haven't. Last year there was none of that. It was just peaks and valleys, and really the peaks weren't all that great because they never won more than 3 games until I think they did it at some point in September. I don't remember. It's all a blur at this point.
They won like an 8-game streak at the end of the year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, mix in 5 straight, 6 straight here or there, win series consistently. Have months where you're a couple games over 500, and then you're going to put yourself in a pretty good spot. Oz is not worried about them. As long as they continue to learn from their ugly games, then it's all good. But learning, again, they can be elusive with the San Diego Padres. It takes a lot to finally kind of learn some of those lessons.
Yes, it does. But remember, this is suddenly a very young club.
Yeah.
Like there's not a whole lot. It's not the all-stars up and down that we saw last year. This is a young club, but I also think it's a club that's better positioned than last year to win multiple games and to not go into the long losing stretches. It's like last year, even as we know, for the first 2 months of the year, Blake Snell was, the typical Blake Snell experience that we, always knew we were going to get. But
first month and a half, Derek. First month and a half.
Yeah, didn't have a healthy Darvish, didn't have a healthy Musgrove. There was no stopper. From what I've seen from these couple trips through the rotation, is Dylan Cease as a stopper. Michael King has the potential to be a stopper. Darvish had one stinker. He was really good before that. Joe Musgrove, 2 really good starts, and then he had a bit of a stinker. He's still trying to really find his consistency. But even Matt Waldron, he should have gone through 6 shutout against the Giants and not had the Kim era that got him out there after 5 1/3. Like he's even looked really good, really committing to the knuckleball and using it as a legitimate weapon. Like they've got guys now who can stem the tide when the offense is going through those little struggles. They can win a game 3-2. The starting rotation is much deeper and much better than it was pretty much all of last season. And that's really, really encouraging too.
So I take it you have zero concerns about Darvish and Joe Musgrove at this point?
This early, they have too much of a track record to not right the ship. Now they both turn in 2 more of these 3-inning, 4-inning, 5-run deals. I'll be like, okay, wait a minute. Everybody's going to be bad, and we've seen it from you every now and then. He'll go a month with a $1.20 ERA and then give up 8 runs in 2 innings, and then he's right back to being you. It happens sometimes with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just looking at Tuesday's game. A single walk in the first inning, a little bit more traffic than we're accustomed to seeing from Joe early on. The Gomes homer, and then he just seemed to kind of lose his command. It just feels like that start could have gone, like there are various possible outcomes with that start.
Well, if Kolek doesn't come in and hang a sweeper to Morel, who hits it into freaking Mario Logan, then that's a much different stat line for Joe.
Yeah. Certainly. And obviously the bullpen has some impact on how those numbers kind of play out. But you don't often see Joe just kind of lose the command, hit a guy, that sort of thing, the way he did there in that fifth inning. Because there were points in that game where it's like, man, this stuff looks sharp. It looks really, really good. It looks tough to hit. And then things kind of went sideways on him. And so I think you're right in that it's probably a bit too early. I think, you get a quality start from both those guys. It's good to see. Are you worried about Joe's shoulder? I don't know if I'm worried about Joe's shoulder.
I'm not, Steve. That's a very good question. I was having some conversations in the press box and then with Joe himself about this. He says the shoulder feels really good. What he's trying to figure out right now is the consistency and really kind of getting his feel back. I was a little concerned his first start in the City Connects, it was a game against the Giants, second game of the year, where it looked like usually his curveball comes out and then just attacks, like it dives, right? It looked like it almost had like a hump to it that night. I'm thinking, okay, that's not the kind of Joe Musgrove off-speed stuff we're used to seeing. And then his next 2 starts, it was, and it was dying late. I'm going, that's the stuff that we're used to seeing from Joe Musgrove. So that's when I started going, okay, I think his shoulder's okay. He says it's okay. He says he feels great physically. Now, Joe is also the kind of guy who can, literally have his appendix burst on the mound and still give you 6 innings. So he's never going to tell you anything is actually wrong. But I'm taking his word for it on this one because the stuff looked a lot sharper in this last start. It was back to not being quite as sharp. So this with Joe, I don't think it's a physical problem. I think it's a consistency and a feel problem. Because remember, he only made 16 starts last year. Like he didn't have anywhere near the kind of season that he used to have or is used to having. It messes his preparation up. It messes his, getting into the season up. So I think as soon as he corrals it, then you'll see him run off 5, 6, 7 consecutive starts, or he looks like Joe Musgrove.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. Again, it's just we're waiting to see it a little bit. I was looking at his kind of early season starts last year because he did kind of have because of the injuries, because of, the weight room situation, the shoulder, that came during his kind of rehab there last year. 3 runs over 5, 7 runs. Man, I forgot about that against the Giants. A 16. Oh, that was
the Mexico City game.
Never mind. Dodgers 5 scoreless, 5 2/3, 4 runs, 5 innings, 4 runs against the Red Sox, and then he just caught fire around the same time, late May, that Blake Snell took off, and then obviously injuries got in the way. And so, all that to say, it took about a month for Joe to really kind of turn into Joe, and different circumstances, but also maybe kind of similar because, you are working your way back from an injury, and, and he said it himself, like, they had a weird preseason. They had a really weird spring. And he said after his start last week that he feels like, okay, the guys, they got kind of the first, a shaky first, run through the rotation, and now they're going to start being themselves. Well, it might not be kind of quite that simple, but what he's saying might end up being true where, give him a couple weeks, give him a couple trips through the rotation before guys, become themselves. And I don't think anybody would be surprised if that were the case when you have this compressed offseason, a couple guys coming off injuries, King in a new role, Cease getting thrown to a different team, then shipped off to Korea like right before the season. Like a lot happened. Then the pause between the games. It's just a really strange build up to the season. And so it's only natural that would have an impact. Excited to see Michael King against the Dodgers. Fun to watch him pitch and fun to watch Dylan Cease pitch. That slider, as Mike Shildt said, is filthy. And, just talking to him after the game, doesn't have a whole lot to say. No, he's got some personality, but like pretty quiet, and you could tell just kind of processing a little bit after the game, but confident about where he's at and likes where he's feeling, after a few starts with the Padres. So, given what the results are, you got to like it.
Yeah, boy, Cease, I was talking to him before his first start. He said it messed him up, the whole getting traded and then going to Korea. Said with jet lag probably set him off about 10 days or so. So if he's off by 10 days, he should just now be starting to figure out, get back into being who Dylan Cease is and who we've seen him to be. And man, that slider looks really good this year. The fastball looks he was hitting 98s on Wednesday.
99.
Which is wild. You know, when you got a dude who can throw like that, but he's not sitting there. He's not max efforting all this stuff, which is nice. Right? He'll get there when he needs to, but then dial back and sit at like 95 or so right in there. And then the slider is really good. I think you're going to see Dylan Cease starting with his next start. Absolutely, utterly dominant. I mean, we're talking like 2022 level. This is the dude who is a Cy Young contender every year. That's what's coming with Dylan Cease.
Yeah. Any other thought on kind of the starters and the rotation? I was going to ask you about the bullpen. You mentioned that kind of off the top, and hey, Robert Suarez can go get you 5 outs. So that's encouraging, but you got to get to Robert Suarez. And hey, they did that on Monday, and he just rolled right through, whoever's up for the Cubs. I wonder how much. I think what's encouraging about the bullpen is like last year there wasn't really any like possibility of the bullpen, unless I'm misremembering, really changing through the course of the season outside of a dramatic move. Whereas now you're like, okay, Johnny Brito's got some stuff to figure out certainly, but you got Usak go. You've got Randy Vasquez, you've got Mazer, you've got these guys that, you might come up at some point. And so even if the bullpen looks a little bit shaky, and I think, still trying to figure out their roles, Yuki Matsui, quick work of an inning, on Wednesday. That's great. That's great. But even if
Matsui's gotten his last 7 outs on 11 pitches.
Oh, really?
How great is that? I mean, talking about efficiency. My goodness. Does that even count as an inning? Like, if you throw 4 pitches and get 3 outs, do you get like an accrued inning for your major league service time?
Well, and Shildt was asked like, hey, did you think about putting him back out there? And it seems like they're just being very specific in how they use him and the different types of situations. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a matchup thing or what have you, they opted against it. But I don't think anybody would have blinked if they had sent him out there again after 4 pitches. But I think what the good thing this bullpen has going for them is there's some variety there, and there are options, if things aren't, don't start to click, and might be a little bit down the line with some of those kind of minor league guys. And but I think we went into this year expecting Randy Vasquez to have an impact at some point and Usak Go to have an impact at some point. It might take a little while, but at least you have those guys in the chamber if we're sitting here at May and June having these same conversations.
Yeah, and remember, you do have, they're not going to give up on Adrian Morejon. They're not going to give up on you. You got a guy like Kevin Kopps. You got a guy like Alec Jacob. You got Kopps has not come up to the major league level yet, but Jacob was very efficient and successful last year. He's coming back for some injury type stuff, but yeah, you've got places you can go. And I did ask Shildt about this. I'm doing the nickname thing like now.
Shildt.
Shildt team, dude. I was Shildt about this on
Would you
Monday.
be Togi? Would you be Togi if you
That was,
were on a?
yeah, that was my nickname in high school and when I was playing ball. Yeah, I was Togi, mostly because Togi Bear, because I said a bunch of dumb crap.
That's actually a great. I might use that.
Yeah, that's where that came from. Or not dumb crap, but thought-provoking things.
There we go. Give yourself some credit.
I got a whole bunch of Yogi Bear stories. I'll spare you all right now. But I asked Shildt about it and said, are you into guys having defined bullpen roles? Like, do you want an 8th inning specialist? Do you want a 7th inning specialist? Like we saw that, we've even seen that in San Diego for years. Robert Suarez was that, setting up Josh Hader. We saw, who was the 8th inning guy?
Oh, Garcia.
Before Heath Bell. Yes, Heath Bell was setting up Trevor Hoffman. You've seen guys like that for your Scott something. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but he's like, I would love to have that. If you could find a guy like that, yes, absolutely. It's nice to have clearly defined roles in your bullpen. And what he left unsaid was nobody staked their claim to that yet. Like Aniel De Los Santos probably has the stuff to be a 7th inning guy or an 8th inning guy. He hasn't staked his claim to it yet. Yuki Matsui might be the guy who's getting to that point where this is my setup guy. And oh, by the way, having a setup guy that is a lefty who throws splitters, who's about 5'8", and then your closer is a 6'5" right-hander with those 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Those are two pretty solid different looks if he can show different parts of the lineup that in different, back-to-back days. So Yuki might be getting that late inning type of situation where this is your role. You are my 8th inning guy who's also showing the ability to get multiple outs. Other than that, it's like they really don't know who's going to be what. So what Shildt says is I'm playing matchups. We got some tough left-handers coming up. I'm going to go to one of my left-handers, Peralta, somebody like that, or Cosgrove. I got some right-handers coming up. I'm going to be playing matchups, Brito, De Los Santos, whoever it might be. So they don't have that. This is the job. This is the situation. This is my guy outside the 9th inning yet, but they're looking for it.
2 other questions or topics before we wrap up here in the next 5 or so minutes. After Wednesday, I thought it's time to just tear up the lineup and start from scratch. Did I say after Wednesday? After Tuesday. After Wednesday, maybe you keep things situated for the Dodger series. Mm-hmm. But any temptation to make any drastic moves? I can give you the idea that I had. Again, this was after Tuesday. Let's see if I can find it. Profar leading off, which doesn't look bad, especially after Wednesday. That's where he hit most often in 2022. Keep Tatis second, move Manny to third, where he's hit more often. Jake in the cleanup spot. Xander down to 5th. He's got a career 866 OPS there, hit there pretty frequently in 2018, 2019, followed by Campy, followed by Merrill, Ha-Seong Kim 8th, and then Tyler Wade, Eggy Rosario at the bottom.
Whoever your third baseman is in last.
Whoever your third baseman, non-Manny Machado, is in last. I think is what it is. It is now. It was Merrill for a little while. They moved him up one spot. But I think having Merrill 7th, so often we've looked at the Padres lineup and be like 7, 8, 9, you ain't getting nothing there. But if you have Jackson Merrill there, and then if Ha-Seong Kim starts to, if he's kind of the usual 750 kind of, average, slightly above average hitter, you got something there.
I would suggest Ha-Seong Kim at the top of the order.
Ooh.
He is, I'm looking at it right now, 91 career games, 774 career OPS as a leadoff hitter. So that's one of literally his best numbers with a prolonged sample size come as a leadoff hitter. He, for some reason, he's one of those guys who just handles that situation well. I like Tatis 2. I like Cronenworth 3. That gives you a left-hander, break up the right-handers. These are a right-hand heavy hitting lineup. At this point, based on production, I could see. It's hard to move Manny out of the cleanup spot because you're just waiting for him to become Manny again, right? And it was almost like that. He's proven it so many times that eventually he is going to break out of it. I'd put, again, based on production right now, Profar 5, Bogart 6, And then you can just, and you can Merrill and Campusano. I think you can probably flip flop based on matchups. Right-hander one night, left-hander the next night. It's just based on what you're seeing. If you want to put lefty righty kind of thing in there. And then I agree completely with the third baseman hitting last. That might be a thing for them to look at here. Maybe if no other reason than just to start unlocking Ha-Seong Kim a little bit, who did look like he was a lot better on Wednesday.
Lauren is going Kim, Tatis, Cronenworth, Campusano in the cleanup spot, followed by Machado, Bogarts, Profar, Merrill, and then third baseman.
Campusano was a little early for him to be hitting 4.
Hey, there's some folks out there on Padres Twitter that want Jackson Merrill hitting leadoff.
I could see it. He did in the minor leagues.
I know. I could see it at some point, but I don't think we need to put that on him at this stage in his career. But down the line, certainly, yes.
It's like what Chris Rock said. Remember, said, you can drive a car with your feet. That don't make it a good idea. Yeah, Jackson Merrill can hit leadoff. As a 20-year-old, I'm not sure it's such a good idea right now.
Machado back-to-back 2-hit games with a double mixed in there as well. So hopefully he's starting to emerge a bit. And Kim, that was one of the revelations last year when they were starting to play well for a stretch. Kim in the leadoff spot did some good things. And so I wouldn't and had a nice performance on Wednesday despite kind of some struggles at the plate to start the season. I'll give you the final word. Dodgers series. I plan to spend a little bit more time on that, but there are other things to discuss. It's an April Dodgers series. We're gonna get fired up about it, but kind of is what it is at this stage in the season. But what's got your attention?
Just want to see how they compete, because we've seen so many times how the Dodgers, what the Dodgers lineup does is what the Padres lineup should aspire to do. They just grind you down, and they never, ever give you an easy out or a taken at bat off. See how they continue to do that. I think if you just take one out of the 3, again, nobody's under the illusion that the Dodgers are not going to run away and hide in the National League West. That's going to happen. If you're going to get him, you're going to have to get him in the playoffs. Hope somebody else knocks him off in the playoffs before you have to deal with them. Just don't embarrass yourself. Even if you drop a couple of 1-run games, just go win one would be good, as long as you are competitive and maybe a break just doesn't go your way. Then in the other 2, I'm good with that right now, because this is an incredible ball club. And Mookie Betts is playing like an MVP. I love watching Mookie Betts play. I love that dude. I hate the fact he's on the Dodgers. I freaking love that guy. Freddie Freeman, same thing. Shohei Ohtani, same thing. I mean, you got too many dudes who are too good right now that you're going to go in there and try and take a series at Dodger Stadium. That being said, the Cubs took 2 out of 3 at Wrigley from the Dodgers, and the Padres took 2 out of 3 from the Cubbies. So then they show that they can go toe to toe with them in Korea. So we'll just, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that I'm hoping for really competitive, good baseball games, because, man, there are probably 7 or 8 all-stars on the field with just these 2 teams alone. And that's always fun to watch.
Yeah. And look, they should be able to score some runs. Now, Yamamoto hasn't given up an earned run since the Seoul Series game over 2 starts.
Padres are his kryptonite.
Yeah, Gavin Stone's got a 7.88 ERA, and James Paxton at this stage, and he's gotten off to a good start, but at this stage in his career, what do you necessarily expect one game to the next? So they're not necessarily going through the gauntlet from that standpoint, and so you'd like to see the offense be a little bit frisky, and that Dodger bullpen is they're not terrible, but they're not necessarily lights out either, and so there should be some opportunities to scrape some runs across and give yourself a chance. And like you said, compete, compete, show some life, show some fight, and kind of let the chips fall.
Hey, Charlie, thanks, man.
And a shout out to Charlie Long on YouTube. That's a good way to go out. NBC 7 San Diego. Great show, Darnay and Togi Berra. Keep up the great content. Love the live stream, and we love being with you.
Like the title of Yogi Berra's book. I didn't say everything I said.
Thanks for being with us. We'll catch you next week.